On May 8th of 2025, a teenage girl arrived at a Wawa convenience store in Gloucester Township, New Jersey. Her shaved head and scarred-up wrists clearly told a story that something was wrong. She wasn't there to grab a snack or fill up her gas tank. Her neighbor had drove her there to meet authorities. She was in desperation to escape a nightmare that, according to investigators, had lasted nearly 7 long years. But in the moment, she was hesitant to tell them everything. Her story would later reveal years of abuse and imprisonment, suffering inflicted by the very people who were supposed to love and protect her. Somehow, it all went unnoticed, hidden behind closed doors with no contact with the outside world. And what makes this case even more disturbing is how it exposes the glaring gaps in how we monitor the safety and well-being of homeschooled children in America.
So as we begin this episode, please know that we will go over descriptions of severe child abuse and confinement. There will also be mentions of sexual assault involving minors. While no graphic details are shared, the content may be distressing for some listeners.
Yes, your mental health is important. Listener discretion is strongly advised. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse or needs help, contact the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org for resources and support. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Ricky.
And this is Crime Salad. So let's start from the beginning. Prosecutors say the girl, now 18 years old, had been confined inside a house shared with her mother, 38-year-old Brenda Spencer, and her stepfather, 41-year-old Brandon Mosley. At first glance, they were just another family living in the suburbs, but behind closed doors, a horror existed within the walls. According to the Camden County Prosecutor's Office and what the victim described, the abuse began in 2018. That same year, Spencer pulled her daughter out of school right before she was supposed to enter the 7th grade. From that point on, she would state that her entire childhood disappeared. Now let that sink in. She was never enrolled again. No teacher noticed her missing. No counselor checked in. No truancy officer came knocking.
So essentially, she was erased from the system.
Yep. The girl told investigators that she was first kept in a dog crate, one large enough for a Great Dane, for about a year, and she was only let out occasionally. And after that, she said she was moved to a padlocked bathroom where she was chained up, and when family would come and visit, they would let her out to hide the abuse. At other times, she was placed in a bare room with only a bucket to use as a toilet, and an alarm system was on the door that would alert Spencer and Mosley if she tried to leave. Like you said, this child was kept as a prisoner. She also reported being beaten with a belt and subjected to sexual abuse by Mosley. And this abuse allegedly continued for years, until that day in May when she escaped with the help of a neighbor who probably felt like a beam of hope to her. Her neighbor opened her front door to a helpless young girl desperate to escape. And to avoid the homeowners of where this girl came from, they drove around hoping to take her to a domestic shelter wherever she could be safe from those monsters. And soon they called the police. The neighbor drove her to the local Wawa where authorities arrived, but initially the teen didn't share the full extent of what had happened to her the last 7 years and all the trauma she experienced. Officers treated it as a domestic situation and offered her support services, which she declined at the time. It wasn't until May 11th that she opened up to authorities. And that same day, the officers returned to the home, and what they found inside that home completely shocked even seasoned investigators. The house was filthy. Detectives described the house was in squalid conditions, with multiple large dogs, Great Danes, chinchillas, and other animals crammed into this space. And yes, the dog crate was very real. Investigators also found a 13-year-old girl, Spencer's other daughter, living in the home. She too had been pulled from school years earlier, allegedly homeschooled, but without any formal oversight.
So I have to wonder, though, was she receiving the same treatment?
So that part we aren't really sure. There has been no information if she too was being abused.
I guess even if she wasn't, though, I mean, she's living in that environment. Her sister's being chained up, caged up, it's still going to cause trauma.
Oh my, yeah. I mean, she was being raised by monsters who were keeping her from going to school too. And who knows if she was getting properly homeschooled.
So how did this go unnoticed for so long, though?
So the adults in this story, they found a way to exploit a major loophole, one that kept them comfortably under the radar. You see, in New Jersey, where this all happened, homeschooling is almost entirely unregulated. All a parent has to do is notify the district of their intent to homeschool. That's it. No follow-up visits, no required testing, no curriculum checks, no accountability, nothing like that.
So I'm guessing this isn't just a New Jersey problem, though.
No, not even close. There are at least a dozen other states where parents can pull their kids from school. And after that, the system essentially stops watching. These minimal oversight states include Texas, Idaho, Alaska, Missouri, Oklahoma, Indiana, Connecticut, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, and Utah. So in these states, there's no requirement to submit curriculum, no mandatory testing, no attendance tracking, and no annual progress reports. In some cases, you don't even need to notify the state at all.
It's kind of mind-blowing, honestly.
I know, exactly. And with that kind of freedom, I mean, there's a real risk of children falling through the cracks or worse, being hidden in plain sight. And obviously, there are parents out there who provide amazing home education. But, I mean, the system has no way of knowing who was doing it right and who's using it as a smokescreen. Meanwhile, there are a few other states who require moderate oversight. Things like a letter of intent and maybe a yearly assessment or portfolio review. These states are Ohio, North Carolina, Oregon, Maryland, Washington, and Minnesota. And at the top, where homeschooling is most regulated, you've got states like Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and North Dakota. So these states, they ask for curriculum approval, testing, and attendance records.
So hearing these cases are always a little weird to me because we've covered a lot of different cases where, homeschooling was abused. But we've only lived in 2 states. We've lived in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and they're pretty strict, really. I mean, you have to present what you've learned, and there's assessments, like you said. So I've never really known this was an issue. I didn't know that you could just go rogue and the state basically loses track of that child.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. In the states which are more regulated, they have more of an ability to identify red flags. A child who hasn't submitted an annual assessment or hasn't been seen by an evaluator or logged attendance, that would trigger a concern.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if this person would have lived in Pennsylvania instead of New Jersey, I mean, it's very possible that, like you said, their attendance would have been noticed or something like that. Like this would have been caught in a year or maybe even a few months.
Yeah, I mean, there's other loopholes, of course, but at least there's something, like some kind of safety net. Because in this case, I mean, it just seems like this child was failed.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we've seen this in other cases. Like a popular one that comes to mind is the Turpin family. I mean, that family, they had so many kids, and I think they were mostly homeschooled or they were schooled and then taken out. But they had to save themselves. Just like this case, she broke out of a window, made a 911 call, all of that. And
it's very similar of a case.
Exactly, because they lived in cages and all of that type of stuff. It's crazy how similar these are, and they were both under the radar, pulled from their schools and basically invisible to the community.
Yeah. I think even the neighbors, they didn't even know that there was even that many children living in that house.
Exactly. And they came from a family, I think the dad worked for like NASA or something. Like you would never connect those things. You wouldn't think there's like this horrible torture going on in this house.
No. And the Turpin family, they lived in Texas, which is another state that doesn't have any regulation at all. You can just pull your child and say, yeah, we're homeschooling them. They're fine. You don't have to check on them or anything.
Exactly. I mean, so you could call it a coincidence or you could say it's a pattern.
Yeah. However, here we are at this point. Years of neglect, abuse, and trauma have long since settled in, and it took this, now 18-year-old girl to escape the prison of her biological mother, Brenda Spencer, and the love of her life, Brandon Mosley, who were both arrested on May 11th and charged with a long list of crimes. First-degree kidnapping, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, aggravated assault, child endangerment, multiple counts, criminal restraint, possession of a weapon for unlawful purposes, and aggravated sexual assault. Currently, they are being held without bail pending detention hearings. So according to investigators, the pair, they lived at the residence since at least 2019. And over the years, the police, they confirmed that there has been no child abuse reports that have ever been filed prior to the teen's escape. The only thing that they did receive were noise complaints from their barking dogs. Prosecutor Grace McCauley, she said, quote, anyone who has been confined for 7 years in squalid filth is going to be damaged psychologically, emotionally, physically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is lifelong trauma.
Mm-hmm. Now, like we mentioned before, this case isn't just about two abusers. It's about a system that allows them to operate unchecked. Homeschooling, when done right, can be a wonderful choice. But without any oversight, it can become a shield for unspeakable harm. And maybe we're stirring the pot a little. I know some listeners get very angry when we cover a case like this. There's no way that every child who is homeschooled is abused and neglected. I'm sure there's amazing parents and caregivers out there that are really doing it for the best for their child because, I mean, public schools can be rough too. Bullying is a whole other subject. But at the same time, why are people who have ill intentions given these loopholes? At what point should things be changed? It's heartbreaking that a child had to suffer at the hands of people who were meant to give her care and support. And instead of being 18, possibly moving on to a career or going to school, she found herself escaping from her abusive home, now in a position to start all over, to find herself and to try to build a peaceful and thriving life out of everything that she's been through. I feel like the state of New Jersey owes her that. She deserves an education and resources that she was never given, a life that she deserves. So with that being said, let's hope that she and her sister don't fall through the cracks as they really need all the support. I know that this was a much shorter episode this week, but it's one that Ricky and I feel very passionate about. There's just way too many cases like this one. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse or needs help, contact the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org for resources and support. As always, we're so grateful for our Crime Salad Patreon and Apple subscribers. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for tuning in. We're grateful for this chance to dive into these important topics as we do our best to lend our voice to those who have been unfairly silenced. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next week for another deep dive into the stories that need to be told.